Welcome to another exciting edition of Meetup Live. This is a Meetup 101 event, and we'll be talking about how to turn your RSVPs into attendees, encouraging those show-ups to encourage the participation and engagement of your groups. Before we dive in today, we are going to review our usual event guidelines. First and foremost, this event will be recorded. Never fear, you do not appear in the video. You will only be seeing myself and our guests for the day. Your audio has also been courtesy muted, so you'll just get a nice clean recording of the presentation itself today. If you do have questions that you'd like answered, we have a Q&A feature. It looks like it's already starting to receive some questions. Feel free to submit those questions today during the presentation. We have specialists from our community support team online to answer in real time. We'll be answering some questions out loud toward the end of the presentation today. Last but not least, we do have closed captioning available. If you'd like closed captioning for today's event, click on the live transcription icon at the bottom of your screen and select your preference. Today, we will be reviewing, after we get through with this introduction, strategies and tips for how to boost engagement in your group. Like I said, our title today is Getting Your RSVPs to Become Attendees. Once we finish our meat and potatoes of the presentation, we'll carve out some time at the end to answer some questions out loud. And then at the very end, I'll be sharing some resources and links to make sure that you have all of the tips and tools at your disposal to continue managing your group and getting the most engagement you can out of it. Today, we're going to talk about what tools and resources are available to attract more attendees to your events, why communication is key to community building, and what tools are available to help you facilitate that communication. And we will be hearing tips and tricks from two of our Meetup organizer mentors. Speaking of which, I am proud today to introduce our guests. We are joined today by two of the mentors from our Meetup organizer community on Discord. The QR code on the screen here will allow you to scan and join this community. It's a community of organizers from all over the world who are sharing their experiences and their questions about organizing so that we can all sort of mutually benefit from each other's community building experience. Today, we're joined by two of the mentors of that community, Ceil and Deborah. Ceil has been a Meetup organizer since 2013. She created and organized a few Meetup groups, including SEMO, which is the Society of International Meetup Organizers, From Broken to Smokin', and the OC Single Moms Club. Ceil's #1 passion is encapsulated in one word, which is relationships. She created SEMO because she believed in staying connected with like-minded transformational leaders all over the world during the initial weeks of the pandemic when towns, cities, states, provinces had to be locked down. Ceil is also a relationship coach and a leadership trainer, and she serves as an organizer mentor, as I said, in our organizer community on Discord. Welcome, Ceil. We're also joined today by Deborah. Deborah was drawn to life coaching after going through multiple transformations, the death of her first husband when she was only 21 years old, major career changes, numerous location moves, and a necessary but heart-wrenching divorce after a long and happy marriage. She is now focused on supporting others through their transformations, including breakups, divorce or death of a partner, relationship issues, career change, life balance, and stress management. Deborah has worked with hundreds of clients, both men and women, over the past several years, both privately and in conjunction with numerous medical practices in South Florida. She is committed to helping people create healthier, happier lives for themselves. She's also the author of Heal Your Heartache, 5 Steps to Reclaim Your Life After a Breakup, Divorce, or Loss of a Partner. And like Ceil, she's also one of our organizer mentors in the Discord community. Emily from our team is posting links to Ceil and Deborah's groups and some of the other information surrounding their community, so feel free to check those out. Without further ado, welcome both of you, Ceil and Deborah. Thank you so much for joining me today. We're going to go ahead and get started talking about boosting engagement. All right, so I'll be asking Ceil and Deborah throughout the presentation today to share some of their experiences using some of the tools I'm going to call out. And we're going to start talking about group expectations and what that can do to boost engagement for your group. I think a lot of the confusion around how to get more attendees to turn up for your event starts with how you set expectations in your group. When you create the group, you have an opportunity to write a description of your group and to create a welcome message to greet new members as they join. And these are two really useful ways to set expectations and guidelines, both about how often you expect people to be attending your events and about expectations around receiving notifications. Because as I'm sure many of you have realized, as notifications are customizable, some of your members might have turned off some notifications from some of their groups, which means they might not be receiving your event announcements. So making sure that the expectations around that are spelled out from the beginning as they join that group really helps to facilitate that communication and the engagement. You are empowered as organizers to state clearly in your description and in your welcome message that a no-show, which is when they RSVP to an event and then don't turn up at all, or just a lack of attendance at all, are grounds for removal from the group. I want to take this opportunity to call out as well. If someone is not attending your events at all, they're not even RSVPing. It might be because they just haven't logged into Meetup in a while. And Meetup sends reminders and invitations to those inactive members over the course of 11 months, encouraging them to re-engage if they haven't logged in lately. They're inviting them back to not just log into Meetup, but to check out the groups that they've joined and to participate in some of the events, because that's why they created the account on Meetup in the first place. So like I said, we empower you to set these expectations. And then once you have the ability to, once you have the expectations set that attendance is required for your group, every month or so, you can go into your member list and you can sort in the member list by who has been active most recently in the group. And you can manually remove those members. Removing a member is different from banning a member from your group. Removing just means they have the ability to rejoin. And when they rejoin, they can reactivate those notifications automatically. Rejoining a group means they're an active member once again, and they're likelier to receive your notifications. We had another one of our organizer mentors who had mentioned that they like to send a personal message as they manually remove these members with a link to the group homepage, which encourages them to rejoin. And when they rejoin, like I said, it reactivates their membership. Ceil, Deborah, do you have any experience with managing your membership, removing members, encouraging them to rejoin, encouraging them to attend, anything along those lines?
Sure. For me, it's important that communication is the forefront of my relationship with my members. And it's important to me that I make them feel that they're not just a number in my Meetup groups, that they actually are a special VIP member in the group. And the way I love doing that is communicating with them. And I use Meetup apps tools. I use the direct messaging feature to make sure that I can communicate with them one-on-one, find out exactly what they need, just like what you said, Alex, and setting that expectations. But at the same time, it's like dating, you have to literally figure out first, what is it that the other person is looking for before I even let them know what I'm offering. In this case, as a Meetup organizer, we put our events up there for everyone to see, but it also makes a big difference when we have that private talk with them, that communication with them. It may not happen when you have a big group, but you can still find a way that you can encourage them to get in touch with you as the organizer.
I think that's going to be a really common theme today. And thank you for bringing that up, Ceil, that having that personal touch really pays huge dividends when you're organizing and setting up your communities. As members feel like they are more comfortable and familiar with event hosts and organizers, it encourages them to participate all the more. So we'll be talking about different ways to facilitate that communication and make sure that you can use the tools available in order to facilitate that personal touch. So how can you reach out to members this way? We're going to take a look at some of the communication tools that Meetup offers that enable you to reach out directly to members as they join, reach out to members who maybe aren't participating in your events as often as you'd like. First and foremost, the one that we like to stress most is the Contact Members tool. This is available right from the homepage as one of your organizer tools. You can send group-wide emails to your members. And as you can see in the screenshot we've listed here, we even offer some pre-made subsets of members that you can send messages to. like I said, if members haven't been active in a while, they might not be receiving all of your event announcements. There is a subset available through the contact members tool here. You can see about halfway down, you can send messages to members who have been inactive for a certain amount of time, just encouraging them to just post in a group discussion or comment on an event. That sort of helps them stay engaged with the group and to receive more notifications. The drop-down menu there for members inactive, you have options there to contact members who've been inactive for 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, and 1 year. After 1 year, again, like I said, you do have the option to start removing members who have been inactive for a certain amount of time, and you can always send them a message encouraging them to rejoin. But if they haven't been active for 1 year, it's sort of time, I would say, to start considering the hygiene of your member list, making sure that the people who are participating, who are part of the numbers of your members, are people who are really invested in the success and the growth of your group. Another tool that's available for contacting your members, also available in your group settings, is the mailing list. And we offer 2 mailing list addresses for each group. You have to manually activate them in your group list, but one of them is just for announcements. If you as an organizer want to announce, hey, there's a new event that's coming, keep an eye out for it, make sure you RSVP. And there's another one for email chain conversations. So by emailing this mailing list, everybody who is subscribed to it is going to receive a message in their email inbox. They can reply directly to it, and everybody's going to see those messages unfold. Deborah, Ceil, do either of you have experience using the contact members tool and the mailing list? Have you seen how it affects the engagement of your groups?
Yeah, actually, I think it's really important before we start removing members to contact members as a whole and let them know what's going on with Meetup. That if you have I see you haven't visited the group in over 3 months, so you may not be getting all of our information anymore. You may not be getting announcements for our events. And if in fact you're not getting the announcements, it may be you can either come back and just go on the Meetup site and look at what we have going on in our group, or at some point I may remove you and give you the option of rejoining. That way your notifications will automatically get turned on again. I think, composing some kind of an email to give our members some information is a really good idea, because most of our members aren't in touch with Meetup the way we are. They don't know what's going on. They don't understand that if they don't look at this, and life happens. So, life is happening and they're not looking at the Meetup group for 3 months or maybe even 6 months, but they have no intention of canceling their membership because they'd like to rejoin when life gets a little easier. And so I think this is a wonderful way to do it. You contact a group of members at the same time, and that enables you to give them that information. I love this.
Yeah, that's a great point too about the extenuating circumstances that surround an activity. Reaching out directly to those members, I think it's beneficial in both directions. As an organizer, you kind of need that information to understand what's going on with your members just as much as they need the information from you as an organizer to know when things are occurring. Mm-hmm. And we've been aware on the community support team that obviously the pandemic has impacted people's ability to be active and participating in groups. As things open up more and more of these groups are sort of getting back on their feet, but that means they have, if they're older groups, they have a subset of members who haven't been participating because things haven't been happening as often. So what we're talking about today are hugely useful strategies for sort of re-engaging members, particularly in older groups. So thank you for sharing that, Deborah. All right, we've been talking a lot about reaching out directly to members. So far, the communication tools that I've mentioned, the mailing lists, the contact members tools with the options of different subsets, even the group description and the welcome message. Those are sort of bulk messages. They're sort of templated. They're going to contact many members at once. By using the direct messages tool, you can contact one person at a time. And depending on the size of your group, that can be a really useful way to keep particular individual members engaged. Ceil, I think you use this pretty commonly, don't you? Yeah.
I use it a lot.
A little bit about that?
Yes, I use it a lot, Alex. It's just something for me that keeps me inspired to keep coming up with different topics. Deborah and I run SIMO And one of the things that we do is we're always in touch with our members directly, and we get our ideas, future ideas for future topics from our members. And that really makes a big difference. And that keeps the consistency of our attendance just unbelievably great. I used to run back in, I had other meetup groups in 2008 and 2009, and it was pretty much a big group. It was very active. It was a sports-oriented group. And I remember the only way I was able to get a hold of each of I had 2,500 members, and the only way I could get a hold of them was really through just messaging them directly and finding out what activities interested them. So that was important to me, listening to what they needed, like I said earlier.
Great. And we've also talked before about, like, if someone is a no-show, the direct message is like such a crucial tool to reach out directly and make sure that, like, is everything okay? And getting that personal touch, I remember you've said, is like a huge way to make someone feel like less guilty if they weren't able to come, and more welcome to continue RSVPing and turning up to events in the future. So I think that's...
Yeah, exactly. I use that all the time. Whenever someone doesn't show up for one of my events and they did not change their RSVP, I always, right away that day when I get home, or in my car, I always send them a message and say, are you okay? I have a women's group right now, so I think it's really important to know that these women are safe. And I also want to make sure that life didn't happen and something happened that I need to know about. Very, very often, 99% of the time, they forgot. And they're going to say that they forgot, and they're going to be embarrassed and say, I'm sorry. And then I'm just going to say, no big deal. But at least they know that I'm keeping track and I care and I miss them. And and I think it's the personal touch. People come to Meetup because of the personal touch. So we need to keep that.
I love that. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. I think this is also a great opportunity to sort of like take a step back and look at what we've talked about so far, because it's not any one of these tools that's going to solve the issue of encouraging attendance. It's the access to all of these different strategies and all the different tools sort of in conjunction that can help achieve that sense of a personal touch. Direct messages can help, but setting those expectations beforehand sort of like helps facilitate the conversation when you send direct messages. The contact members tool sort of helps people keep engaged. You can, like Ceil said, you can start eliciting ideas for new events. All of it together sort of helps create a reinforcement for you as the organizer to keep those members coming back and participating in your events. So I just think that's an important part of it to stress. It's like there's a network of ideas and options that you have here, and you can kind of test and choose which parts of it work for you, but not any one of them is probably going to be like the silver bullet that solves all of the issues. Okay, so there's a couple more communication tools that I want to focus on. One of them is right on your group homepage, and that's discussions. In my experience as an organizer, I tend to use this for eliciting ideas for new events, more so than the direct messages. But it's great to hear from Ceil that she does use direct messages, because that gives you a sense that, like, you can use these different tools for different purposes. It just sort of depends on how your community is unfolding and what your members respond best to. Discussions, I find to be a great way to link to some like free poll websites, so you can like offer up a couple of clear-cut ideas beforehand that people can vote on. And you also have the option as an organizer, there's a toggle at the top right of the little discussion box that allows you to manage if your members can start new discussions themselves. There's some amount of trust that goes into that. You want to make sure that there's expectations set in the group about what people can post about, if it's relevant to the group. You want to set, expectations about mutual respect and stuff like that. But I think once you have a good community going and you sort of know each other well, it's a great option to have some of those members become more active on their own account, start posting their own discussions. That also, I mean, we're not talking so much about this part of it today, but identifying who's most active in your group is a great way to select leadership team members, which we can talk about a little bit more in the Q&A if anybody's interested. As your group expands more and more, identifying people who can help you manage your group and host other events is a really useful way to maintain that sense of engagement, not only from your members, but for yourself, so that it's not entirely your responsibility to do every single bit of the personal touch. All right, and then I think this is the last communications tool we're talking about at the moment. And this is our newest feature, which is event chat. We've got a lot of new stuff to talk about with it today as well. We just actually rolled out a brand new feature for it. So, and it's been highly requested. So if you're not familiar with event chat, we rolled it out late last year in 2022. And the idea is that this is a way to communicate in real time before, during, and after the event. You have the option to share attachments like photos and files. You can put a little emoji reactions on specific messages. You can reply directly to messages and create chains within the event chat. The thought initially, as we were rolling this out, was that it would be such a useful way if you're hosting an in-person event to find each other, because sometimes you'll, like for a hiking group, say, you'll be meeting like at a particular sign in a big park. So making sure that you have a real-time way to communicate with your attendees. If they're having trouble finding that sign or finding you, you can tell them like, oh, I'm wearing a purple sweater and you can find me here. Deborah, didn't you have some experience using this recently? Do you want to share how that's been going for you?
Yeah, the interesting thing is when event chat was first coming out, I was in the group that was testing it. So I had a lot of comments about it and a lot of suggestions. And I'm happy to say that everything that I was looking for is actually in event chat now. But what I didn't realize is the power of event chat during an event. I really did not see that. And I have 6 event organizers in my group. And some of them didn't like event chat initially because they were used to comments. You know, anytime we make a change, there's always that, you know, that time that it takes to get used to it. But what I noticed is one of my event organizers was doing something over Halloween at a Halloween event. And then I noticed this again at Christmas when she was doing another organizer was doing a Christmas event. They were actually, because event chat is in real time, they were finding each other. And these were not easy events to find each other at because there was a parking issue. There was a lot of traffic. And yet these women were finding each other. And sometimes they would find one other woman and say, oh, I've got Cheryl. It's okay. We're going to hang out and we're going to, you know, go off on our own. And I, as the organizer, was just hearing all the event chat beeps and watching it. And it was really fun seeing how much fun they were all having. And then at the end of the event, as they were pulling away, saying what a great night. And it was, to me, it really sold me on event chat, even more than all of the other features did. Just that real time during an event feature of having each other, being able to find each other. And I'm in the yellow hat and I'm in the pink sweater and whatever. I loved it. I loved it.
That's really great to hear. And I think that it's worth stressing at this point, right now, event chat and event comments both exist. So if you have an existing group and you're used to using event comments, that still exists. We're offering event chat as a like more in the moment way of sending those messages and contacting each other. And I think, Deborah, you'd also said like you had used event chat like a day before the event to sort of to remind people and ask them if they needed to change their RSVP from going to not going. That again, sort of like that prevents them from being a no-show because they get the respect and sort of the trust that they can change without there being sort of any negative consequences for it. So yeah. I think it's great to see organizers using the new features, giving us the feedback about what's working and frankly, what isn't. And to that point, like I said, we've rolled out a new feature based on lots of feedback we've heard from organizers using this. We're happy to announce we just like within the past hour released a mute notifications button for event chat. If you have a lot of people who've RSVP'd and are using the event chat, sometimes people have been reporting like they're getting bombarded with notifications, and there hasn't been an easy way to leave an event chat if you had RSVP'd to the event. So right now it's only available on desktop web. You go to the event page, you go into the event chat itself. There's a 3 dots icon in the top right-hand corner. You create a drop-down and you can select mute notifications from there. And that'll help control the amount of notifications you are receiving about the event chat. You can still manually go into the event chat, see the chatter as it's happening. Like we've been saying, it's hugely useful as an event is happening, but now you have a little bit more control about the notifications that are happening. And I believe we are going to continue expanding on the capacity of that so it'll reach other platforms like the apps.
Alex, can I also say something about event chat? I think one of the things that we organizers have to remember is Meetup has been providing us with different platforms and different ways that we can communicate with our members. But here's something to me that's really important. Considering that we have a direct messaging feature, we have, emails, we have, and now we have event chat, and there's others, make it clear for your specific event. Make it clear that you are actually using one of the features, just like in Deborah's case, where people were looking for each other during the event, and it was a big event. Let's say it's a concert, and you want to meet at a certain place. Make sure you let the members know, okay, guys, if you get lost, go to the event chat. I'm sure you'll be able to find answers to your questions before you stress out about it.
I think that's a really important a principle to keep in mind as an organizer. I think it kind of speaks to what you were saying earlier about it being like dating. It's just as much about making sure you understand what they need as leading by example by showing what you are offering. And I think with the new features, it's particularly useful to demonstrate that if it works for your community. And if you are testing new features like the event chat and you're noticing something could be improved, that's when sharing the feedback with our community support team is so crucial. We try to roll out new things like the mute notifications as quickly as we can based on what we're hearing from people using the features. We will be sharing links toward the end of the presentation so that you have access to submit that feature request feedback. And we'll talk through that later. Anyway, so that's event chat. And thank you very much for sharing your experiences with it, Ceil and Deborah. It's really exciting to hear how it's evolving and how it's working for people. All right, another strategy that exists for improving your engagement is using the money management options for your events or for your groups. We've learned in the years that we have been improving on the product that a member who has paid even a little bit to participate in your group are likelier to turn up at your events because they've invested a small amount of money. There's that extra sense of pressure that they themselves have created. And they're like, well, I better make it worth the money I invested, even if it's just $1 or $2. So the 3 options we have available for that are member dues, event fees, and our new fundraising feature. Right now, fundraising is still pretty new. I think we launched it last year and it's only available in the US. But fundraising is a more optional feature. Like member dues, it's just not required to participate in the group. You can create a campaign on the group homepage and people can choose how much they're donating. We also say for the organizer side, like we're saying, members are likelier to attend if they've invested money. For the organizer side of it, the funds that you can collect can be used to offset the costs of being an organizer, whether that's securing a venue for your in-person events, paying off the subscription, and assembling if you need like plates and cups for hosting, for any of those small little fees. And those are also an opportunity to be transparent with your members about what you're using those funds for. Deborah, Ceil, do either of you have experience using any of the fundraising features? Fees or fundraising?
Yes, I actually have been, in the past, I've actually used a lot of the event fees. And yes, it's helped me offset my membership dues. One of the things I think that's important for us to remember as organizers is that members usually resist giving you the money, just like in any fundraising effort, when they don't know the value of what they're shelling out the money for. So as leaders of your own groups, I think it's really important that we continually let them understand that we are striving and doing our best as the meetup organizer to make sure that we keep up to what we actually promised them when we first started a group. So whatever your intentions are, whatever your motive was when you first started your meetup group, know that it's always important to communicate that with your members so that they understand the progress that has been happening since you first started a group, that it's not just sitting around and not doing anything. You're actually doing everything you can to make sure that you meet your own goals and that they are served. And I think that's important. And that will help you in your fundraising efforts.
Yeah, that feels like a huge point. I think setting member dues or event fees, any of these money management options right at the beginning of a group is a little bit trickier because your members aren't going to be seeing what value is being offered because there won't have been like a history of events being hosted. There won't be any like messaging history in the group yet. So they're not going to be sure what they're paying for. If you're a more seasoned group and you're trying to boost the engagement and you haven't set up those money management options yet, that could be a really healthy way to start promoting more engagement. I do want to point out, we do have another Meetup Live event coming up soon related to these topics. I think Emily might be sharing a link to that event in our chat so that you can RSVP to that event if you are interested in learning more about member dues, event fees, or fundraising.
Can I add something also,
Yeah,
Alan?
of course.
I think sometimes as organizers, we forget how valuable our meetups are, as Ceil was saying, but we also forget the value that we're offering to our members. And I've had so many members over the years since I started my meetups back in South Florida in 2015 or 16. So many members tell me that it was a lifesaver for them because they felt like they were drowning. They didn't have the relationships that they needed. They didn't have any connections. They had moved and they were in a new area, or they had gotten divorced or whatever. And we forget, I think, how important Meetup is to so many people. So when we ask for a small amount of money, most of our members, certainly the members that are getting the value out of it, and usually the members that are coming are the ones that are going to raise their hand first and say, absolutely, no problem. I had a situation one day where I actually had a member at one of my events say to me, why are you not charging for this event? And I said, well, because we're in a dining event and I want people to pay for their drinks, their coffee, their desserts, whatever. And she said, yeah, but $1 or $2, $3, $4, whatever. And she got up and asked everyone for money. And I ended up leaving with cash in my pocket that day. I think it was like $35, but it was just the idea that we forget we're giving a lot of value. So yes, I've done event fees. I've paid for my meetups in Florida doing all of this. And I think it's really important that we remember that we're offering an amazing service to our members.
That's a great reminder. Thanks for bringing that up, Deborah. And I think we will be thinking at some point in the future about how we can enable organizers to better capture the feedback that they're getting about their events, because I think to what both of you are saying, making sure that you have on hand what value you are offering to your members becomes a huge tool in boosting this engagement. So yeah, we'll be probably discussing that and offering more tools about it in the future. We've got two other features, I think, that I wanted to go over today for boosting engagement. One of them is the Attendee Manager. Last year, we launched the Organizer app, which is a streamlined version of the Meetup app that is specifically for organizers. It gives you faster access to the tools that you need to create events and host your events. The Attendee Manager allows you to sort the attendees who have RSVP'd, and it gives you some statistics to better understand who's attending. Do you have a lot of people who are attending their first event? Do you have a lot of people who haven't paid their event fee yet? Getting access to some of those details and some of that information lets you know as a host what to expect and how much effort you need to put in to continue the communication. And this goes back to what I was saying before, that's like, it's not any one of these tools that will solve the issue of engagement. Attendee Manager is a hugely helpful resource in conjunction with the others in order to facilitate how you are communicating with your group, what you're encouraging people to do. You can either search directly by name for a particular attendee if you know you need to look a little deeper into some particular one, or like I said, you can use some filters and sort through them and identify subsets of people to contact. And then the other feature, which is also available in the organizer app, and we launched this again because of feedback we'd heard from organizers using the app. When you are at the event, you have access to event check-in. So you can mark who turned up, who was a no-show, and who did, and like an expected not going. If somebody had changed their RSVP and told you, but hadn't had a chance to adjust their RSVP themselves. Capturing these statistics in real time at the event is hugely helpful for planning your next one and for maintaining contact with attendees who either are not meeting your attendance statistics, or by identifying attendees who you know are going to be really huge parts and pillars of your particular community. The check-in feature opens 1 hour before the event starts, and you'll have access to it up to 24 hours after the event. And then this, the RSVP statistics, I believe, are always available, I think in a simpler form, but they are available in the attendee manager well after past the 24 hours, you still have access to the information from event check-in. So those two features, like I said, are available in the organizer app. If you have not heard of the organizer app, if you haven't downloaded it and set it up yet, this QR code gives you an opportunity to do that. You can scan it on your device. If you have an Android or an Apple device, it'll take you to the respective landing page. You can download the app. You can log in using the same credentials that you use to log into your organizer account on the desktop web or in the classic member version of the Meetup app. Using the organizer app, giving us and the community support team feedback about what you're discovering as you're using it helps us to continue to iterate on it and make it more and more useful for you. And I think that concludes the majority of our presentation today. Thank you both, Ceil and Deborah, so much for sharing your experiences using these tools and your strategies. Would you mind sticking around to answer some questions that have come in through our Q&A channel?
Absolutely.
Great.
I see that we've had quite a few people posting already in the Q&A feature. If you have other questions about stuff we've talked about, please feel free to continue using that Q&A feature. We may not be able to get to every single question in the time we have left today, but we'll do our best to answer as many of them as we can. I want to start with a question we got from Ron. Ron had said, we have 732 pending members going quite a while back, and removing them manually is impracticable. This is a great point. It goes back to what I was saying about setting group expectations and manually removing members who are inactive. I'll give everyone in attendance today a little tip. If you have a large group of members that you are identifying as inactive, and you are recognizing that manually removing them one by one is just going to be way too time consuming for you, submit a ticket to the community support team. We have tools on our end to do bulk removals for you. The trade-off with that is that we cannot send the message that you would send to invite them to join the group again and reactivate their membership. But removal is different from banning. If this member notices they've been removed, they always have the option to rejoin. And you can try to send a message to those members if they've been inactive for less than 12 months by using the contact members tool, just to give them a heads up to say, if you haven't been active in a certain amount of time, you will be removed. Please feel free to rejoin. We'd love to see you at our next event. So I hope that answers your question. All right, so we'll continue going through the other questions we've received. The next one is from Vicky. How do I get more people to attend my events, especially paid events? How can I consistently get large turnouts at most of my events? I've got some thoughts on this, but I want to open it up first and see, Ceil and Deborah, if you have thoughts about encouraging large turnouts at paid events.
Go ahead, Deborah.
We're such good friends. Go ahead, Ceil. Go ahead.
Thank you. I'll make mine quick. So one of the things that I know, I've done a lot of large events. I used to have a curling event where on Valentine's month, and I had 200 people for each event, and I had a waiting list for that. One of the things that I did was I know I keep repeating myself, guys. I love just communicating with my members, and I'm staying in touch with my members. And believe it or not, one of the things as a leader that you might also want to think about is I was able to get volunteer co-organizers, if you will. back then. And it really helps a lot when you have co-organizers who can stay in touch with the members. You can divide the number of members per co-organizer for the event so that they can be in touch with each of these members. It helps a lot when you actually have a co-organizer assigned to a specific number of group because they know who to turn to, instead of the members feeling like, who do I ask? I don't even know, Ceil is too busy, or no, you don't want any excuses. Eliminate all the excuses, and that would help.
What I was going to say also is I think it's really important if you're trying to plan events that are paid events or large events, you need to know that these are the events that your members are looking for. So doing online meet and greets, asking your members specifically, sending out emails, asking them what kinds of events they're looking for. I've had a number of my organizers plan events, even if they were free, that no one wanted to go to. And then I have other events that I never expected that everyone wanted to go to, and they had a huge wait list and a huge price attached. So I think it's really important. You can't get a large group of people to an event unless you know that's an event that your members really want to attend. That's the type of event they're looking for. Remember, this isn't about us as organizers, it's about the membership.
Great, thank you both. Okay, our next question comes from, I believe it's pronounced Zygon Curry. They ask, what happens after 11 months? I'd mentioned earlier today that Meetup sends automatic reminders to members who have not logged into Meetup at all over the course of 11 months, inviting them to log back in and reactivate their membership, making sure that they're receiving notifications. So they ask, what happens after the 11 months? Does Meetup not send notifications to members who have not visited the group after 11 months? It's worth calling out that there is a difference between not visiting the group and not visiting Meetup at all. The 11-month invitations that we send out automatically are for people who have not visited Meetup at all. If they haven't visited the group, you as an organizer have access to those communication tools that we discussed earlier today to invite them to RSVP, comment, join a group discussion, any of those like interactions with a group that would register them as an active member again. So within the group, you have some more control there. If they haven't joined a Meetup at all and they haven't responded to any of the 11 months of automated reminders we send them, I think it's every few months we'll send them over the course of 11 months, we do stop sending those invitations. And at a certain point, their account gets disabled, so they can't log in without contacting our community support team to reactivate their account. The reason for that is that we don't want to just bombard people with notifications if they're just not going to participate. We found that that's actually a deterrent for people participating generally. They're a lot less likely to engage with groups and with events if they're receiving too many notifications. So if they're not joining at all, yes, after 11 months, we do stop sending. But if they are an active member of Meetup overall, and they just haven't visited your group, the communication tools that we talked about today are a great resource for encouraging them to come back. All right, our next question comes from Edward. Edward asks, what are the best ways to advertise a Meetup event? I have some thoughts on this, but I'm curious, Ceil and Deborah, if you have any experience with advertising your events.
I just wanted to share our Meetup on SIMO. We have all these organizers, all these amazing organizers who actually share their stories, and we share our victories and our challenges as well. One of the things that really stood up is that for me is one of our organizers, David Good. Hi, David, if you're here. He has, I believe, he has over 25,000 members, and he uses Facebook a lot, and he uses Facebook to talk about his events, and he gets really great. And I remember even attending one of David's events before I met him as a co-organizer, as a main organizer. So another way that you can also advertise is, number one, using your social media. If you have other platforms that you use, and word of mouth. And keep in mind, the members that always attend your meetups are usually your best ambassadors. So having a really good relationship with the members that are constantly coming to your events makes them understand and makes them see that you're not just treating them like a number, that you're treating them like a human being, and that they are really valuable to you. So talk to them and ask them if you have any friends, bring your family, bring your friends, add that to your invitation. Make sure that you let them know that they can invite their family and friends as well.
This is all hugely useful, and it brings up two great points I want to talk about. One of which is you mentioned sharing events on Facebook, and it might sound like blasphemy to have someone from Meetup saying, "Ooh, great idea." Except we actually do have a Help Center article that is designed for the specific purpose, because we understand the importance of leveraging your social media networks to invite new people into your community. I think we can share a link to our Help Center article on sharing an event on Facebook or Twitter. You can also just copy the URL of your event and post it into any other social media platform you happen to be using. If you have a thriving community somewhere else, you can invite them to join your Meetup group. If they even need to create an account, they'll be able to do so, but you can leverage the existing communities you've built on other platforms. The other thing I wanted to say was, nope, I've lost it because I got distracted by the idea of, what was the second thing you'd said, Ceil, after sharing on social media?
Also, using the members that are constantly coming to your events, they're your best ambassadors. And
right.
Because
yes, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have a template for new events. If you haven't hosted an event in a while and you want to encourage, like Ceil is saying, those ambassadors, those really healthy members of your group to bring their friends, there's a pre-existing template called the Meet and Greet, which will auto-populate a lot of the event scheduler, so you don't have to worry about having a cover photo, an event description. You just sort of have to select the date and time and the location where you're hosting it. And you can specify that those meet and greets are for the express purpose of having your existing members just bring a friend who isn't even part of the group, because you never know if that friend is going to be like, oh, this is great, and then they join your group and become a permanent, like, repeated member of your group. So great points. Thank you for bringing those up and for reminding me. Trying to juggle a lot of things at once. Okay, let's see, what other questions have we gotten in the Q&A that we can answer? Let's see. Vishnu asks, does charging for specific Meetup events, even a nominal fee, increase the likelihood of members attending? Statistically, we found yes. It's a great question. Are contact members and mailing lists part of the standard membership plan, or are they only for pro? That question comes from Sean. The answer is they are available for standard subscribers. If you don't have a Meetup Pro subscription, you have access to all of the communications tools that we talked about today. If you subscribe to Meetup Pro, you get access to a dashboard that allows you to have a little bit more robust control over who you're contacting. As a standard subscriber, you likely don't have access to your members' email addresses and cannot directly contact them. Pro subscribers can use a form in their events and ask people to register their emails, and then they can leverage something called a MailChimp integration so that they can create custom mailing lists. But the contact members tool and mailing lists that we talked about today, available for standard subscribers. If you're interested in learning more about Meetup Pro and what that offers, you can go to meetup.com/pro. Free trials are available. You can test that out and see if it's going to work for your group. Let's see. Someone has asked if announcing an event via the contact members is overkill if you just posted it. Not necessarily. I think there might be situations where sending a contact members message just after you've announced the event could be useful. The likelier situation where it's useful to do is if you have a recurring event. We haven't really talked about that so much. A recurring event you don't manually announce. We have automated event reminders, I think a week and then one day before the event, in order to encourage people who are already members of the group to RSVP to that event, just to remind them that it's happening. The idea with a recurring event is that if it's scheduled regularly enough, the reminders don't really need to happen because your regular members know, oh, we always meet every second Thursday of the month at this particular place and for these kind of meetings. But for those kind of events, because we're talking about how to boost engagement, if you're seeing dwindling membership, if you haven't hosted that kind of a recurring event regularly in a while, the contact members tool can be a really useful way just to remind people it exists. More than a week beforehand, you can start boosting the engagement before the event happens.
I'd like to answer that also, Alex.
Sure.
I use the contact members a lot, and I use it even with the events that I'm not hosting, that my other event organizers are hosting. And I don't do it immediately, but we might plan events a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks out. And as the event gets closer, I'm going into event chat, I'm going into comments, and I'm reminding people who have RSVP'd that if their plans have changed, to please change their RSVP, and that no shows for any dining event or any event with a wait list are grounds for removal from the group. I'm also doing that in an email through the contact members. I do that usually 2 days before an event. I send an email out for every single event, no matter who's hosting it in my group. And I just, again, that statement is there. And I just remind them that the organizer is really excited, that event organizer is really excited to see them, and you have RSVP'd. So please make sure that you change your RSVP if your plans have changed. I think that's really up to our engagement. It really has. And we've seen people fall off at the last minute when they're a waiting list and other people pop in. And I also wanted to mention this also, because we didn't get a chance to talk about this. If you have a waiting list and at the very end, those people start popping in because other people have changed their RSVP, please make sure that you send each of those people on the waiting list that have suddenly become an attendee, send them a personal message to let them know, because they will get a notification, but they might not see it. And if you send them a personal message, they're much more likely to see that.
Do you use the direct message tool for that?
I do.
Great.
Absolutely. Yes, I do.
That's a great point. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, our next question comes from Sue. She asks, how do we handle the situation when someone habitually RSVPs to a meetup event and then cancels? Have either of you experienced that?
Yes, I have. I had someone that canceled at the last minute, and we can go in, as we know, as organizers, we can click on their profile and on their main profile, and we can look and see how many events they've RSVP'd for and how many events they've actually attended. And I think most of us as event organizers get used to those names. Like, we start to notice, oh, this person, her name or his name keeps popping up. I have sent personal messages to those people and let them know that you cancel at the last minute. I've noticed you canceled at the last minute, a number of times. Is there anything I can do to get you to an event? Is there, because we don't know if this person has social anxiety. And that could be, they could want to come and at the last minute, they hesitate or they're not sure, or maybe they're not sure about the parking, or maybe they're not sure about their safety. So I think it's always important first to ask the question, is there something I can do to help get you to an event, because I'd love to meet you? And then if that doesn't work and they come back with, oh, my plans change a lot. Well, maybe this isn't the group for them. Maybe this isn't the right group for them. And then we have that kind of a conversation.
Gotcha. That's great. Okay. I'm still scrolling through the questions that we've received. And I want to call out, we've gotten a lot of questions about member dues, event fees, and fundraising. I want to call out some of those questions. We're talking primarily about engagement today. So mostly the reason I'm calling out these questions is to say, we're going to have an entire Meetup live event coming up soon to address these questions in more detail. So let's try to scratch the surface here and see what we can acknowledge about them. But since we are running out of time in the hour we have here to talk about engagement, the link we've posted in the chat for the upcoming Meetup live event to talk about the money management tools to boost engagement. We're going to have a lot more time to talk about that in the near future. So questions we've received are, if I enable member dues, will Meetup kick out those who have not paid? The answer for that is yes, with prior notice. This is another one of the situations where setting group expectations is really useful. Most member dues setups allow you as the organizer to choose a certain number of trial days that someone gets without paying. And as those trial days run out, we do send notifications to the member reminding them you do have to pay or you will be removed from the group. Anyone who is removed from the group can always rejoin, but they would have to pay without having a new trial. How do you collect money for fees, such as the member fee? We have some integrated tools through a company called Stripe that allow you to collect those member fees. For event fees, we have an integration with PayPal to collect those. Some people even just collect event fees in person. Let's see, what other question do we get about this? Do you find that charging a fee helps show-ups, attendance, and what should I charge? Do either of you have a sense about amount that you feel comfortable charging your group? I feel this goes back to what we were saying originally about the value that you know you're offering.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're just doing an event where, you just want to ensure that people are coming, you might charge $5, to keep it very simple. If it's a wine and cheese, obviously you're charging more. If you're doing a workshop, as Ceil and I have done in the past, you can charge a little more as well. But it really is, as Ceil said earlier, it's a matter of what kind of value are you giving at this particular event.
That's right. And I agree with Deborah. One of the things that we also remind our members is that, one of the things we always remind our organizers is at our CIMO meetups is that, remember, the members who don't appreciate you or who don't recognize the value that your group brings to their lives probably will back out anyways. So keep in mind that the members that know exactly the purpose that you have and you are in sync will understand why. We actually had a leadership call where we talked about how we could explain to our members the value of our groups, and it's definitely something that will help you. And it was a great call because all the organizers shared their stories on how they were able to start membership dues, where organizers were afraid to start membership dues. Now they felt really confident and they were able to start create the letter template, put it up there, and they're now charging. One of them is actually Tanya, and she started charging, and it's amazing.
Thank you so much for sharing the experiences you've had, the tips and strategies that have worked for you, your experience using some of the tools we've had today. We're out of time for a Q&A today, so I just want to make sure that everybody who has joined us today has access to links to reach the community support team if you have further questions, if you're noticing something that doesn't seem to be working the way that you expect it to, if you have requests for new features. These QR codes will give you the links. I believe we're actually going to post the direct links in the chat as well. In the top left-hand corner, you'll see our feature request form. That's if you want to request new ideas that would make Meetup more efficient and beneficial for you. If you don't have specific ideas, but you just want to stay up to date on what we're launching and when, our blog has a product updates page, and you can subscribe to it in the bottom left-hand corner. Our help center, which we've been posting links to today, has lots of information about how to get the most out of the tools. You can check out the Meetup Help Center. You can search for specific questions, including the stuff we've talked about today, the communication tools, the money management tools, the apps, all of it. We've got information and resources on it in the Help Center. And if you're encountering like an error message or the app is crashing, you're seeing something go wrong, report a bug directly to our support team. We can investigate more quickly and roll out fixes more quickly if you use the form in the bottom right-hand corner. That just makes our investigations a little more efficient. Ceil and Deborah, who've joined us today, are mentors in our organizer community on Discord. We launched this community over the last year. It's growing rapidly. It's organizers from all over the world sharing their experiences. You'll get real stories from real organizers who are building their communities. It's a hugely, hugely valuable resource. We're really proud of how it's growing. If you have not joined yet, scan this QR code. You'll join the Discord community. If you're not familiar with Discord, it is a live instant messaging platform. If you don't have it set up already, you can just set up an account with Discord and join. You'll see lots of people already in the discussion. Our mentors will welcome you in. You'll have access to people like Ceil and Deborah and many more. You'll continue being able to ask questions like you did today. And last but not least, our Keep Connected podcast with our CEO, David Ceil. We host interviews. We recently hosted one with singer-songwriter Jewel. We talk about community building. We give some teases about where we are thinking the direction of Meetup is going. Feel free to subscribe there to the podcast. And thank you so much for joining us today. I'll put in one last shout out for the upcoming Meetup Live event where we're going to discuss money management tools like member dues, event fees, and fundraising. Since we had so many questions about it today, we'll devote another hour or so like we do here to talk specifically about those tools. Thank you so much for joining us today. Ceil and Deborah, thank you again for sharing this time with me, and have a wonderful day, everyone.
Thank you,
Alex.
Thank you, Alex.